And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I'm your host Demo, and this is Brewing with Underwhelming Commanders episode 4. And coming in at number 3 this time is Ertai the Corrupted. 2, a white, a blue, and a black. Human Wizard, 3/4. And you pay blue and tap, sacrifice a creature or enchantment, counter target spell. So, how do we want to build around this guy? Well, first things first, I say it all the time, right? Everybody say it with me. If your commander has a tap ability, gotta have 1,000-Year Elixir, gotta have Lightning Greaves. Unfortunately, these two cards don't work in tandem very well because we can't untap our commander if the Lightning Greaves are on it. However, I think one or the other is okay. We can Lightning Greaves, and then that way we can use our Ertai right away. 1,000-Year Elixir is probably always the best option here because we can use it right away and then untap it to use it again. However, you know, Lightning Greaves protects our commander from removal, and I have a feeling that this is a deck that, you know, your commander says counter target spell on it. I have a feeling that's going to turn you into the arch enemy pretty quick. People don't like having their stuff countered. So I think that, you know, having removal protection for your commander might be more important. Also, Fate Stitcher, you know, you could throw any untap effects in here where you're untapping your commander so that you can use it again, right? But of course, we have to be sacrificing a creature or enchantment. And there are a few enchantments, Hatching Plans and Induced Amnesia. Hatching Plans is great. It's just 2-mana enchantment, and when it's put into the graveyard, you draw 3 cards. So that you're just going to play and it's just going to sit there. And when you sacrifice, you get to draw 3. I really like Induced Amnesia, 2 and a blue enchantment. When Induced Amnesia enters the battlefield, target player exiles all cards from his or her hand face down, then draws that many cards. That's going to be you. You're going to choose yourself. So let's say you have 5 cards in your hand. You exile those 5 cards and you draw 5 new cards. It's sort of a wheel effect. And then when Induced Amnesia is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you return the exiled cards to your hand. So when you sacrifice this, the 5 cards that you exiled go back to your hand. So this essentially becomes 3 mana, draw 5 cards. That's really, really good. You just got to be careful it doesn't get bounced or it doesn't get exiled, because then you don't get those cards back. But worst case scenario is you just drew a fresh hand. Treacherous Blessing and Dreadhorde Invasion are also really good in the deck. Treacherous Blessing, 3 mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. So 3 mana, draw 3. Whenever you cast a spell, you lose 1 life. So that's not great. When Treacherous Blessing becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. So we're just going to sacrifice it, right? It's going to come into play, and then we immediately sacrifice it. So that cast a spell, lose a life thing isn't really going to hurt us. And Dreadhorde Invasion is just going to give us a token every turn that we can sacrifice for our Ertai. And then also, you know, the fact that we lose a life, we can, if it becomes an issue and our life gets too low, we can just sacrifice the Dreadhorde Invasion and get it off the table. Obviously, there's lots of creatures that fit in this deck, Reef Worm and Aura Thief. I just talked about Aura Thief in my 10 cards video. Any blue deck where you're sacrificing creatures, it's a great fit. Reef Worm is going to give us another token that we can sacrifice, and then another one that we can eventually attack with. The 9/9 blue Kraken is pretty good for closing out the game. Archon of Justice is another great one that when it dies, we can exile permanent. There's lots of cards like this, right? I also threw Sedgemoor Witch in here because, you know, we are going to want to make sure we have tokens. This is going to be an Esper control sort of deck, right? So we are going to have lots of instants and sorceries, and Sedgemoor Witch has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token. Also has that dice trigger where we gain a life. That's not bad. So I think that works in the deck. It's going to be giving us regularly tokens that we can use. Really the best one though, and I don't know if anyone's thought of this yet, but the Lull Mage Mentor, 1 blue blue. Whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may put a 1/1 blue merfolk creature token onto the battlefield. It seems like a weird fit in this deck. This is not a merfolk deck, but that first ability guarantees us a merfolk every single time. Whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, that's our commander, right? We're going to sacrifice a creature, counter a spell, and then because we did that, we create a merfolk token. This always gives us something that we can sacrifice to Ertai's ability. And if we can manage to get to 7 merfolk, we can just tap them all to counter a spell. I mean, if by some chance you have other things, right? So say we have our Dreadhorde Invasion out, we're sacrificing those tokens to counter everything. And maybe, you know, we could, like, I wouldn't hang on to that hope too much, but there is a chance that we get to the point where we get enough merfolk tokens where we can use that second ability. But I mostly put it in for the first one. Just every time we counter a spell, we're getting a merfolk token that we can then sacrifice the next time. And Guile, same thing. If a spell or ability you control would counter a spell, instead exile that spell, and you may play that card without paying its mana cost. So we're going to be doing that lots, right? Our commander does it. We know we're going to be countering lots, and I honestly, I don't know how many other counter spells you would put in this deck. Obviously, you'd put a few. Fierce Guardianship, I think, probably needs to go in this deck just because you need to protect your commander. But here, now we're countering spells that we actually get to cast. That's pretty darn good. Don't have to sacrifice our creatures. Ray of Command and Reigns of Power. We can just steal our opponent's creatures as well and sacrifice them to Ertai's ability. Or we can sacrifice them to something else, like Yahenni I would put in this deck. We're going to be having a lot of creatures that we want to be sacrificing. So having other sacrifice effects that we can take advantage of always works. Athreos, Shroud, Veiled, and Luminous Broodmoth are going to be fantastic. Basically, they just give us a reuse, right? And also, since we're doing that, why not have some ETB creatures? Really, ETB creatures and dice triggers we want. So Solemn Simulacrum and Ashen Rider. Creatures like that both have an ETB and a dice trigger. They have both. So we're getting the ETB, we sacrifice them, we get a trigger. Maybe we had a coin counter on there from our Athreos, so they come back into play, we get the ETB again. So you really could go sort of an ETB strategy with this, maybe even a recursion strategy. And I thought a card that fits really good is Dreams of the Dead. 3 and a blue enchantment. You pay 1 and a blue, return target white or black creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature gains cumulative upkeep 2. If that creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. This is a really interesting card that I will probably give a mention in one of my 10 cards videos. It really works best in an Esper deck, right? Because obviously it's a blue card, so you have to have blue, but it only returns white or black creatures. So in order to get the best value out of this, you want an Esper deck where you have lots of white and black creatures, and you're going to just pay 2 mana, return them to play. That's it, right? So for example, our Ashen Rider would be a perfect one for this, because we're just going to pay 2 mana, put it directly into play, exile a permanent, and then we can sacrifice it to our Ertai. It's going to get exiled, so we won't get that dice trigger, but so what? It's a creature that's in play. We're going to have to pay the cumulative upkeep 2, which we don't want to do. We just want to sacrifice it to Ertai's ability. And it's at instant speed. You just do it whenever you want. At any point, we can just return any creature from our graveyard to the battlefield that we can then sacrifice to our Ertai. So I think it's a fantastic fit in an Ertai deck. So that is it for Ertai. And coming in at number 2 this time, Cardur Doomscourge. This is a new one. And I kind of like that I'm getting, I purposely, obviously, put some newer and older commanders in these polls. And it seems like every time I am getting some new ones, some old ones, which is really good. So how are we building a Cardur Doomscourge deck? 2 black-red Demon Berserker. When Cardur Doomscourge enters the battlefield, until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able and attack a player other than you if able. So goading, I don't know why Wizards of the Coast doesn't reuse its own keyword ability. This is goad. Why don't they just say goad each creature your opponent controls? They do this a lot, and I'm not sure why. They do the same thing with landfall, where why aren't you just using your own word? I don't get it. It's weird. So when it enters the battlefield, we are going to goad our opponent's creatures. And when an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So there's a couple of things going on here. Now, obviously, our commander has an ETB, so we're going to want something like Conjurer's Closet. Ideally, this is probably going to be the best card in the deck, because every turn we can just blink our commander and this ability is going to trigger again, and our opponents will never be able to attack us. Ultimately, we'd like to get to that place where essentially the win con in this deck can just be our opponents kill each other. And at the same time, we're doing that drain life effect. We really don't need much else, I don't think. Erratic Portal and Sanctum of Eternity will also work. We can just bounce our commander back to our hand. Obviously, there's not a lot of blinking stuff in Rakdos. Even though it might seem mana intensive to pay 1 or 2 mana and return your commander to your hand and then cast it again for 4 mana, our opponents are never going to be able to attack us if we do that, right? So I think it's totally worth it. Other goad effects, obviously, Disrupt Decorum, we're going to put in here for sure. Bloodthirsty Blade. We do want some backups. Geode Rager is a good one. Every time we get a landfall, we can goad each creature target player controls, right? So this is going to get 1 of our opponents. And then I threw Kazul, Tyrant of the Cliffs in here because got to be careful, Goading is not something that people love. Really, I've said it a few times before on my channel where you're sort of controlling your opponent's turn a little bit, where you're telling them they have to attack and you're telling them basically who they have to attack. And people really don't like that. People don't like being told what to do. So we got to be careful here. If someone gets our any of our goad effects away, we're going to be swung at like crazy. So we do need some of these effects like Kazul. But we also have to make sure our opponents have creatures, right? This is one of those decks that I've talked about where if your opponents don't have creatures, it really doesn't do much. Hey, we're going to goad each creature our opponents control. If they don't have any, that does nothing. So we got to make sure they have creatures, right? Cards like Mogg Infestation and Varchild's War Riders, cards that I've talked about in my 10 cards videos for exactly this reason. It gives your opponents creatures. Mogg Infestation is particularly good because if your opponent has some creature, like their commander, maybe they're playing a Tatyova deck, and you just want to get that Tatyova off the table, you kill it, but you give them 2 Goblin tokens that they then will have to attack with. Varchild, of course, and Rite of the Raging Storm is another one. Used to get played in Commander a lot. I haven't seen it much lately. Just gives everyone tokens that they're going to have to attack with anyway, so it works in the deck. And then the Hunted series, Hunted Horror and Hunted Dragon. You know, I had a guy comment on one of my videos recently, had no idea these cards existed, so I guess I should be giving him a mention in my 10 cards videos. They're great if you want to be giving your opponent's creatures. Hunted Horror, black, 7/7 horror, so a 2-mana 7/7 with trample, but when it enters the battlefield, you give an opponent 2 3/3 green centaur creature tokens with protection from black. Now, we don't love the protection from black thing, but oh well, they're not going to be attacking us, right? So what do we care? Hunted Dragon's going to give our opponent 3/2/2 white knight tokens. Again, they're going to be attacking our opponents. And then we have a 6/6 flying hasty dragon that we can smack our opponents with. So those work good as well. But we also got to be killing them. We want to use that second ability. Whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Obviously, Rakdos doesn't have a lot of trouble killing opponents' creatures. You can just put Terminate, Bedevil. Obviously, you're going to put stuff like that in the deck anyway. We need instant speed removal here, of course. And then taking advantage of the dying like Massacre Worm and Revel in Riches. Revel in Riches can just be a win con where we just sit there collecting treasure tokens every time an opponent's creature dies. Massacre Worm is just fantastic. Whenever a creature an opponent controlled dies, that player loses 2 life. Again, that can almost be a win con. It's draining our opponents just like our commander is. So it's just such a fantastic card because creatures are dying all over the place in a game already. I put Urbrask the Hidden and Uphill Battle, another card from one of my 10 cards videos. Our opponent's creatures are going to be attacking all the time, so they're always going to be tapped. So that allows us to get in for damage. So I included some personal favorites of mine, Goblin, Grenadiers, and Bone Dancer. And you can do more of this, right? You can put more cards that when they connect with your opponent, you get benefits out of them. These ones have the old wording of whenever they attacked and aren't blocked. Goblin Grenadiers, 3 and a red. Goblin, whenever Goblin Grenadiers attacks and isn't blocked, you may sacrifice it. If you do, destroy target creature and target land. That's pretty darn good. I really like Bone Dancer. 1 black. Zombie, 2/2. Whenever Bone Dancer attacks and isn't blocked, you may put the top creature card of defending player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. If you do, Bone Dancer assigns no combat damage this turn, so you can keep doing this over and over and over. And it's going to be really easy. It's going to be really easy for us to get these 2 guys in, attacking and unblocked, because our opponent's creatures are going to be tapped all the time. We want our opponent's creatures to be dying during combat, so Blood Frenzy I thought was a really interesting include. It's sort of a Berserk-ish type card. Cast a spell only before combat damage step. Target attacking or blocking creature gets +4/+0 until end of turn. Destroy that creature at the beginning of the next end step. So this is sort of like combat manipulation. We can use it for whoever. It's not going to die during combat because it gets destroyed at the beginning of the next end step, but we just give +4/+0 to either the attacking or blocking creature, whichever one is going to die, and then we just get the added bonus of the other creature dying at the beginning of the next end step. So I think that's a great fit. But that second ability of whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Really, we want to do that on ourselves, I think. We want our own creatures to be dying during combat. That's the easiest way for us to take advantage of that ability, because then we're in control. I mean, how many creatures are you going to kill of your opponents during combat? We can put something like a Magma Quake in here, sure, but that's going to kill our creatures too. That's going to wipe our whole board. That's just going to kill everyone's creatures. And constantly wiping the board and killing everyone's creatures, that's not great for us, because then there's no creatures attacking at all. We want our opponents to have creatures. So I really think that last ability is going to be more, we're taking advantage of it, we're using it, we're sacrificing our own creatures during combat, And of course, you can do it after damage is dealt, right? An attacking creature is considered to be attacking until the end of combat. So after the damage is dealt, then we can sacrifice our creatures. And what better way to do that than with goblins? I mean, why not just go goblin tribal with this deck? Goblins are going to ensure that we have lots of little tokens. Goblins are great at that. Goblin Assault, Goblin Rabble Master. They're just going to give us tokens every turn that we can throw at our opponents. And if they die, great. Our opponents lose 1 life, we gain 1 life. And if not, then we can sacrifice them to any sacrifice effect, and our opponents will gain 1 life or lose 1 life. Grenzo and Goblin Spymaster are both perfect fits in this deck. Grenzo, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to choose one. I mean, that's going to be happening a lot. Hey, we get to goad target creature a player controls. That's something we already want to be doing, right? And then also we get that impulse draw for opponent's library. So he fits in so many different ways. So does Goblin Spymaster. It's a goblin. It's going to be giving our opponent's creatures, which we want. And also, that creature that we're giving them has creatures you control attack each combat if able. So it just fits everything we're doing perfectly. Id Halfheart is great. Legion War Boss is great. I mean, obviously, once you go down this road, it's a really easy build around. I really like Relic Robber. Again, it's a goblin. It's got haste. It can attack right away. When it deals combat damage to a player, we're going to give them an 0/1 colorless goblin construct artifact creature token with this creature can't block, and at the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 1 damage to you. I mean, this just fits in every which way, right? It's going to be giving our opponents creatures which we like. They have to attack with it if it's goaded, obviously. It can't block even if it's not goaded. And it's also going to be damaging them. Perfect fit in the deck. And then I thought Breath of Fury is also a really perfect fit in the deck. 2 red, aura, enchant creature you control. When enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, sacrifice enchanted creature and attach Breath of Fury to a creature you control. So basically you just put this on a creature, you connect with one of your opponents. When it does, you sacrifice it and attach it to another one of your creatures. If you do, untap all creatures you control, and after this phase, there is an additional combat phase. So we can just keep doing this. We sacrifice a goblin token, and of course that works with Kardur's ability. Our opponents are all going to lose a life and we gain a life. And if we have a lot of these token making goblin things out, we could possibly just keep going until all of our opponents are dead. So I think that works fantastically in the deck as well. Really easy build around. Again, this was another one where I saw it and I'm like, what are you going to do with that? And it didn't take much before the ideas really started pouring out of my head with this. Again, I think Goblin Tribal, I mean, black and red is great for Goblin Tribal already, so it would be really easy to fill up the rest of the spots in this deck. And then, of course, black and red is great for removal, so you're going to want lots of creature removal here as well. Instant speed creature removal, right? But who is our winner this time? It is Yosei the Morningstar, and this one really surprised me. I try to include a mono-colored commander of each color in each poll. This one won. I'm really surprised. Kardur was in the lead for a while, and I sort of just said, I'll let the poll run for another day. I came back the next day, and Yosei had just out of nowhere taken the lead. So if you haven't seen it before, Yosei is 4 white, dragon spirit, 5/5 with flying. When Yosei the Morningstar dies, target player skips their next untap step. Tap up to 5 target permanents that player controls. So really, there isn't any other way to play this other than Stax. Really, that's the only way you know, I don't know if you want to call it Stax. Well, yeah, it kind of is. I mean, let's be honest. You're going to be tapping down your opponent and they don't get to untap. It really is the only way you can play this deck, I think. And again, because our opponents know what we're playing and probably assume we're playing Stax, we got to keep them off of us, right? So settle the wreckage and comeuppance. We're going to need lots of effects like this, because I have a feeling if you're going to be playing this deck, you're probably going to be a target pretty quick. These are personal favorites of mine. You know, this is the kind of stuff I play where I'm just keeping my opponents from winning. Yeah, okay, stopping your opponents from winning doesn't win you the game. Sure, but stopping your opponents from winning leaves the game to be won by someone else, yourself included, right? If my opponent casts a Craterhoof Behemoth and is going to run everyone over, and I cast a Settle the Wreckage, now they haven't won the game, and it allows me to go ahead and win the game myself. Pretty simple logic there, I think. I just find it odd when people say stuff like Pillowfort and Stax aren't good because you're not moving towards victory. Keeping the game from ending is always going to be moving towards victory. I also got Ghostly Prison and Crackdown. Love me some Ghostly Prison. And Crackdown is another personal favorite of mine. 2 and a white enchantment. Non-white creatures with power 3 or greater don't untap during their controller's untap step. So this is not going to hurt us at all. It's only non-white creatures. So it's only going to hurt our opponents. And it fits the theme of what we're doing already. Obviously, we want our opponent's stuff coming into play tapped. So Authority of Consuls and Blind Obedience. Commander staples. I'm sure everyone's seen these in games from time to time. Archon of Emeria and Thalia are also really fantastic in this deck. Just great creatures. Gonna slow our opponents down, gonna help us a lot. The best ones though, Kismet and Loxodon Gatekeeper. Kismet is a 4-mana enchantment. Artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. That's really good. And Loxodon Gatekeeper is a 4-mana Elephant Soldier 2/3 that has the same ability. Artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. That's just about everything. Their artifacts and their creatures and their lands, not non-basic lands, all their lands. These are really good cards that you could put in just about any mono-white deck, and it's really going to slow your opponents down. I mean, it's going to make you a target, but listen, my thinking is this. I have a Kismet in play, and my opponent has a Rhystic Study in play, and he's drawing tons of cards off of it. Who's the target here? One guy has a Rhystic Study, and I got a Kismet. So the other two guys, who are they going to go after? If they have a Croson Grip, which enchantment are they going to destroy first? I don't know. It's kind of funny when you talk about, and I'm going to go on a tangent here, but it's kind of funny when I made my What White Does Best video and everyone was talking about, yeah, these are a bunch of strategies that White does well that everyone hates. Okay, but you know what the number one thing people hate that I have seen? Counterspells. They hate counterspells, right? They also hate discard. Nobody likes having their whole hand discarded. They also hate their opponents ramping like crazy. They also hate their opponents drawing cards like crazy. They also really hate Hull Breacher. Man, do people hate Hull Breacher. I had one guy comment on that video, you're going to play your Hull Breacher, I'm going to play Armageddon. So I just think when people say everyone hates these white strategies, yeah, but everyone hates a lot of blue strategies, everyone hates a lot of black strategies, everyone hates a lot of green and red strategies. Everyone hates a lot of strategies. So if my opponent has the choice of I'm going to kill a Kismet or I'm going to kill a Rhystic Study, which one are they going to pick? I think probably you could split that down the middle. You could probably split most players down the middle and destroy the Kismet or destroy the Rhystic Study. For me, I would destroy the Rhystic Study. It's way better than Kismet. Kismet's going to slow me down a little bit, but my opponent's going to draw a ton of cards off of that Rhystic Study. So I would definitely destroy that first. Even though this deck might make you a target, I think you'll be okay because your opponents are going to be doing other stuff too. Every opponent is going to be doing things that are going to be making them a target at some point. You're just going to have to be careful the way you play this, right? A Staxy deck is not for novices. You got to be careful how you play things. Got to wait for your moment, right? Wait for your moment, like with the Kismet, exactly what I'm saying. Wait till your opponent plays a Rhystic Study, then you play your Kismet, okay? Now there's something else on the table that maybe is more annoying than your Kismet is. Speaking of annoying, Magus of the Tabernacle is going to be fantastic in this deck for a couple of reasons. 3 and a white, Human Wizard 2/6. All creatures have, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this creature unless you pay 1. So this is, of course, is the Magus of the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale fame. It's that ridiculous land card on a creature. And I suppose if you got a Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale kicking around, maybe you could throw it in this deck. I don't know. But this is particularly good because it's going to be, again, slowing our opponents down because they have to pay 1 for their creatures if they want to keep them. It's going to be keeping our opponents off of us because maybe they have to sacrifice their creatures now because they don't want to pay the 1. And we want our commander to die. We need sacrifice effects in this deck. So in order to get our commander's ability, it needs to die. So this works with our commander. We can just forego paying the 1 and let our commander die so we can get that ability. We're definitely going to need other effects. Animal Boneyard and Martyr's Cause are great. We want stuff that we're not going to have to pay for. We also want stuff we can use at instant speed. Animal Boneyard is an enchant land, so it's probably not ever going to be a target. And we can just tap that land, sacrifice a creature, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. So gaining 5 life is also good. Martyr's Cause, again, it's free. It's not going to cost us anything. We can do it at instant speed. The next time a sorcerer of your choice would deal damage to any target this turn, prevent that damage. That's also very usable. I really like World Queller and Balancing Act. These are 2 cards that I try to find room for in decks, and I think this is a perfect fit. World Queller is just a fantastic card that I think you could put in any deck. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may choose a card type. If you do, each player sacrifices a permanent of that type. This is so fantastic fantastic because you pick whatever you want, right? So at the beginning of your upkeep, let's pick Enchantment because my opponent has a Purphoros, and that's an indestructible enchantment that they now have to sacrifice. So if there's a particular thing on the table, my opponent has a Vorinclex, it's his only creature, so I'm going to choose creature and he has to sacrifice it. And we're going to sacrifice our Yosei. That's a thing we want to sacrifice. You don't have to pick anything. You also can pick something that you don't have. So if you don't have any enchantments, you just pick enchantment, and everyone's got to pick an enchantment to sacrifice. You don't have to sacrifice anything. Balancing act, I think, I've been searching for a deck where I think this fits, and I think this is the one. It's 2 white sorcery. Each player chooses a number of permanents they control equal to the number of permanents controlled by the player who controls the fewest, then sacrifices the rest. Each player discards cards the same way. I really like this card in a mono white deck, especially in this deck, because what's going to happen is everyone's going to choose a number of permanents, and again, if you're in a mono white deck, this is going to be advantage you, right? This is how white wins games with effects like this. This is very similar to balance. It's a bit different because you're choosing all permanents. And of course, it's more expensive. We're not going to choose our commander. So what happens is we cast this, we don't choose our commander, and then our commander will get sacrificed. That dice trigger will go on the stack. One of our opponents is going to pick their things that they get to keep, and then we get to tap all that stuff down. And so basically they lose their turn. So I think this works in the deck as well. It also works with the strategy, the Staxy strategy that we're playing here. But of course, we're going to be sacrificing our commander, so we got to get it back, right? Angelic Renewal and Brought Back are good. Our commander dies, we can get it right back, but we want repeatable effects. Sigil of the New Dawn and Gift of Immortality are probably the best ones. Sigil of the New Dawn, whenever our commander dies, we can just pay 1 and a white. If we do, return to our hand and we cast it again. Gift of Immortality is even better because we can put it on our commander, and when it dies, we return it to the battlefield, so we don't have to cast it again, and then return Gift of Immortality to the battlefield attached to it at the beginning of the next end step. So as long as nobody removes that Gift of Immortality, we can keep doing this. And this is at the beginning of the next end step, so we can do this on every turn. It's going to be a little difficult because Yosei only targets 1 player. It's going to be really good once we get down to 1 opponent left, but as long as we have 3 opponents, it's going to be a little difficult. But if you can get to the situation where you have your sack outlet and you have Gift of Immortality on Yosei, you sack them on your turn, tap down 1 opponent, they lose their untap step, and then on that opponent's turn, our Yosei will be back in play with Gift of Immortality back on it because it came back at the beginning of our end step, and then we can sacrifice it and do it to the next player and so on, and we can just keep on doing that. That's really what you want to get to in this deck, is a loop like that where you constantly are bringing your Yosei and tapping everyone down to the point where they're just completely tapped down and they stop playing. Enduring Renewal is another way we can do this. 2 white enchantment. Play with your hand revealed. Okay, so that's not great. We got to show our opponents what's in our hand. If you would draw a card, reveal the top card of your library. Instead, if it's a creature card, put it into your graveyard. Otherwise, you draw a card. So basically, you can't draw creatures. If you draw a creature, you're just going to chuck it in your graveyard. So that's not great either. However, whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return it to your hand. That is what we want. That's going to lock down the game, especially if we're down to 1 player, okay? If it's down to 1 other opponent and us, and we have this, we can play this, right? Again, you got to wait for the right moment. You don't just throw this out there. You wait for the right moment, you play this, and now we just sacrifice our Yosei to any of our sacrifice effects, tap down our opponent, our Yosei goes back to our hand immediately, and then we recast it, and our opponent is just completely locked out of the game. And we just keep casting our Yosei every turn, and our opponent never gets an untap step. All their stuff is tapped. All their stuff is going to enter the battlefield tapped, likely because of Kismet or some of these other effects. I even threw Approach of the Second Sun in here. I mean, why not? Any deck that is a Pillow Fort or Staxy strategy is going to use this. I don't even know if it's necessary, though. If our opponents aren't untapping any of their stuff ever, how hard is it to win from there? It's really not that difficult. Is this a fun deck to play against? I don't know. Probably not. But is a deck where you're countering lots of stuff fun to play against, right? And apparently people do that all the time too. So it is what it is. This is what people wanted. This is what they voted for. And this is what I'm giving them. It's Yosei the Morningstar. And the deck list is in the description below, as always. And the poll for the next video is also in the description below. So make sure you vote on the next poll, and we shall see which commanders come out on top for the next video. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.